The night was heavy with rain when Lee Min-soo held Sunmi's trembling hand. They had no blessings, no luxury, only love, Sunmi. Once we leave tonight, there's no turning back, Min-soo whispered, his eyes full of determination. Sunmi, her eyes glistening with tears, nodded, my parents will never forgive me. But Min-soo, I'd rather be cursed by the world than live without you. That night, they ran away just to young souls against society. Months later, Sunmi gave birth to a baby girl. Min-soo held his tiny daughter in his arms, whispering, Lee Yn. My angel, no matter what happens, Appa will protect you. But life had other plans. After a year of struggle, Min-soo decided to take his wife and daughter back to the Lee mansion, his family's traditional, pride-driven home. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere froze when Min-soo entered with Sunmi and the baby. His two elder brothers exchanged disgusted glances. The sisters-in-law whispered behind their fans. His parents' eyes were cold as ice. After defying us, you dare bring her here, his father's voice thundered. Sunmi lowered her head, clutching baby Yn tightly. Min-soo stood firm. She is my wife, and this is my daughter. Whether you approve or not, they are Lee's. Though they threw tantrums, the family accepted them, but only because of Min-soo's unshakable stance. For 3 years, Sunmi lived quietly, enduring the stares and whispers, focusing only on raising Yn. Min-soo was her shield, her comfort. But fate struck cruelly. One rainy morning, news arrived. Lee Min-soo had died in a car accident. The Lee mansion's silence that day wasn't grief, it was judgment. See, this is her curse, hissed the elder sister-in-law. She ran from her parents and brought shame here. And now look, our Min-soo is gone because of her, said the other. 5 years later, tragedy struck again. Sunmi's health collapsed under stress and grief. On her deathbed, she held 12-year-old Yn's hand. Yn now, my precious girl, you must be strong. Don't let their words break you. In sobbed, shaking her head, Yama, don't leave me, please. But Sunmi's hand went cold. At only 12, Yn was left alone in a mansion full of wolves. From that day, her childhood ended. School was taken away, her books replaced by house chores. Clothes given to her were old, used ones from cousins. Her aunts treated her like a maid. Cousins bullied her endlessly, mocking her for not having parents, laughing at her tears. Every corner of the mansion reminded Yn she was unwanted. By the time she turned 21, the cruelty hadn't stopped. The insults, the labor, the humiliation, it was all the same. But deep inside, a fire had started to burn. The sun had barely risen when the Lee mansion came alive with the sound of clattering heels and voices echoing through the grand halls. For everyone, mornings meant a leisurely start with tea, fruits, and the luxury of time. For Lee Yn, mornings meant endless chores. Carrying a heavy tray, Yn rushed from the kitchen. Her hands were red from the heat of the dishes, strands of her hair sticking to her face from the steam. She had overslept by only 10 minutes, but in this house, even 10 seconds of delay was treated like a crime. As she placed the dishes on the long dining table, her eldest aunt Madame Han banged her spoon against the plate. Her cousin Minji, who was only a year older, smirked while scrolling through her phone. Of course it will. You always mess up. Maybe if you weren't so lazy, you'd get things right. Laughter followed from the other cousins seated at the table. In's heart ached, but she quietly served the food. The second aunt, Madame Park, wrinkled her nose as Yn placed the bowl in front of her. And look at your clothes. Do you have no shame wearing my daughter's old dress? It looks disgusting on you. Her daughter, Sahi, giggled, pointing at the faded sleeves. Amma, don't be too harsh. She has nothing of her own, remember. Not even parents to buy her proper clothes. The table erupted in cruel laughter. YN's throat tightened. She wanted to disappear, but her legs forced her to stand still, bowing her head lower. Suddenly, Madame Han slammed her chopsticks on the table, making everyone fall silent for a second. And why is the soup cold? Are you trying to kill us all with your incompetence? In's eyes widened. No, Auntie, enough. Madame Han's voice cut her off. She grabbed the bowl of soup and, without warning, threw it across the floor. The hot liquid splashed, sunburning YN's hands. She winced in pain, but before she could move, Minji's mocking voice echoed again. Look at her face. She's about to cry. Pathetic, as always. Tears threatened to fall, but YN swallowed them back. For years, she had learned that showing pain only gave them more satisfaction. I'll make it again, YN whispered, bending to clean the mess. Behind her, her cousins were already laughing, their words like knives. She should have been born as a maid's daughter. Even that would have been better, at least a maid gets paid. No wonder her mother died early. Carrying a purse like her must have been unbearable. In's hands trembled as she wiped the floor. Her heart screamed in agony, but her lips stayed sealed. At the head of the table, Grandfather Lee the Patriarch sat silently, reading his newspaper, pretending not to hear. He never stopped the insults. His silence was the cruelest weapon of all. YN stood up slowly, her burnt hand red, her eyes glistening, but hidden by lowered lash. Inside her chest, however, a small voice whispered, "One day. This will end. One day, I'll rise so high they won't dare look down on me again." But for now, she carried the tray back to the kitchen, her dignity crushed, yet her soul quietly resisting. After clearing the table and reheating the soup, YN slipped into the back kitchen, where the atmosphere was always different. No judgmental stares, no sharp insults. Just the clatter of pots, the scent of broth, and the quiet comfort of familiarity. There, standing with her hands on her hips, was Jihoo, a maid her age, her hair tied back in a loose bun. Unlike the cold cousins upstairs, Jihoo's face always carried warmth for YN. Yeah, Lee YN. Jihoo whispered, tugging her wrist gently when she saw the red burn on her hand. What did they do this time? Spilled soup on you. There, standing with her hands on her hips, was Jihoo, a maid her age, her hair tied back in a loose bun. Unlike the cold cousins upstairs, Jihoo's face always carried warmth for YN. Yeah, Lee YN. Jihoo whispered, tugging her wrist gently when she saw the red burn on her hand. What did they do this time? Spilled soup on you. YN smiled weakly, trying to wave it off. It's nothing. I was late, so they had to put on their daily circus. Jihoo scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. Honestly, your aunts and cousins should get paid for all this drama. Monsters in silk dresses, that's what they are. Despite herself, YN let out a small laugh. Don't say that too loudly. If anyone hears, you'll be fired, theft. Let them fire me. Jihoo leaned closer, lowering her voice but her eyes full of mischief. At least I'd be free from this hellhole. But you, she poked YN's arm. How long will you endure this? You're not a maid, YN. You're a daughter of this family. Why do you let them treat you like dirt? In's smile faltered. She leaned against the counter, her gaze dropping to the floor. Because I have nowhere else to go. This is the only home I've ever known. Jihoo clicked her tongue, frustrated. Home, this isn't a home. YN, this is a cage. Every day you stay here, they're killing you little by little. You should run away. In's eyes widened. Run away? And go where? Jihoo crossed her arms, muttering under her breath, anywhere would be better than here. A train station, a stranger's kindness, even the streets would be kinder than your so-called family. In tried to smile, but her eyes shimmered with tears. I can't, Jihoo, my mother. She endured all of this for me. If I run, it would mean giving up on everything she sacrificed. For a moment, silence filled the kitchen. Then Jihu sighed and gently wrapped a bandage around YN's burnt hand. "You're too good for this world, YN. Too good for them." YN chuckled softly, the sound half broken. "And you're too reckless. What would I do without you?" Jihu grinned, squeezing her hand. "You'd cry in a corner and never laugh. That's why I'm here, to remind you these devils aren't as powerful as they think behind their backs. I curse them every day." The two girls burst into quiet laughter, the kind that felt stolen but precious. For YN, these stolen moments with Jihu were the only time she felt human, not invisible. But as footsteps echoed outside the kitchen, Jihu's laughter faded, and she whispered, "Promise me, YN. When the time comes, you'll leave this mansion. Promise me you won't waste your whole life being their shadow." YN's chest tightened. She wanted to promise. She wanted to imagine a world beyond these walls. But all she could whisper back was, "I'll try." That night, when the mansion fell into silence and laughter from the cousins' rooms echoed faintly in the halls, In slipped into her own small corner of the house. Her room wasn't truly a room. It was the old storage space at the back of the mansion, with peeling wallpaper and a single cracked window that let in cold drafts. But it was the only space she could call her own. Closing the door softly, YN sank onto her thin mattress. Her hands trembled as she reached under the loose floorboard, pulling out a small, worn wooden box. Inside, wrapped in an old cloth, lay her mother's gold chain, delicate but beautiful. Her father's first gift to Sunmi. Beside it was a simple but elegant ring, the one her mother used to wear every day. The rest of the jewelry her mother left behind had been seized by her aunts the very day Sunmi died. They called it family property, sneering at the idea of leaving anything with YN. But these two pieces she had managed to hide, her most precious secrets. With trembling fingers, YN lifted the chain, letting it dangle in the dim moonlight. Tears blurred her eyes as she pressed it to her chest. "Yama, Appa," her whisper broke in the air. "Why did you both leave me? You promised to protect me. You said I was your angel. Then why am I all alone now?" Her tears fell silently, soaking her pillow. She closed her eyes, clutching the chain tightly. In her heart, she could almost see them, her father's warm smile as he held her hand for the first time. Her mother's gentle touch, brushing her hair back. The way they both laughed together, filling her little world with love. Now their voices were only echoes, their faces only fading memories. YN slipped the ring onto her finger, though it was loose. She pressed her lips to it, whispering shakily, "I'll protect this, Yama. I'll never let them take it from me. Even if they take everything else, these will always be ours." For a moment, in the stillness of her room, she felt like a child again crying for her parents, wishing to wake up from this nightmare. But morning would come, and with it, the cruelty of the Lees. For now, she let her tears flow freely, hidden from the world. Only the chain and ring knew her pain. The mansion was silent, only the faint ticking of the grandfather clock echoing through the grand hall. The night was heavy, almost suffocating. In sat on her mattress, staring at the ceiling with swollen eyes. Jihu's words replayed in her mind over and over. "This isn't a home, YN, it's a cage. One day you must leave. Promise me you won't waste your whole life being their shadow." She squeezed her fists. Her heart pounded with fear, but also with something unfamiliar courage. Slowly, she got up and reached for the small wooden box hidden under the floorboard. With careful hands, she packed her mother's chain, her ring, and a few photographs she had managed to save. These were all she had left of her parents. From under her pillow, she pulled out an envelope Jihu had secretly slipped to her weeks ago, money Jihu had been saving for years. On the back of the envelope, Jihu's messy handwriting read, "For the day you finally choose yourself." YN pressed the envelope to her chest, tears brimming in her eyes. "Jihua. Thank you." She packed the items into a small cloth bag so light, yet it felt like she was carrying her entire world. Her hands shook as she crept toward the door. Every creak of the old wood made her heart leap into her throat. She opened it slowly, peeking into the hallway. The guards her uncles had stationed outside were dozing off in their chairs, their breaths heavy with sleep. In's heart raced. This is it. If I'm caught, they'll lock me away forever. She tiptoed, every step measured, her bag clutched tightly against her chest. When she reached the gate, the cool night air hit her face. It smelled like freedom. She hesitated for a second, glancing back at the mansion that had been both her home and her prison. Memories of endless humiliation and cruelty flashed in her mind. No more, she told herself. I won't cry in those walls again. Without another thought, YN slipped past the sleeping guards. At first, she walked slowly, her legs trembling, afraid the sound of her footsteps might awaken someone. The silence of the night was deafening. Every shadow felt like an enemy. But the further she went, the lighter her steps became. The mansion was now behind her, shrinking with every stride. Suddenly, adrenaline surged through her veins. She clutched the bag tighter and broke into a run. Her slippers slapped against the dirt road, her breath ragged, tears streaming down her face. Her heart was beating so wildly it hurt, but it was a sweet kind of pain, the pain of freedom. For the first time in her life, YN wasn't running to obey someone. She was running for herself. The black Rolls-Royce Phantom sliced through the night like a predator, its windows tinted, its engine growling low. Inside, the atmosphere was heavier than the silence of a gunshot. On the back seat sat KIMTAEHYUNG, the name that sent shivers through every mafia, politician, and businessman in South Korea. The king, ruthless, cold-blooded, his sharp jawline caught the faint city lights as he leaned back, eyes as dark as obsidian, unreadable and merciless. Beside him, his right-hand man, Jungkook, scrolled through files on a tablet. The driver kept his eyes forward, too afraid to even breathe loudly. Boss, Jungkook's voice was steady but cautious. The Lees have crossed the line again. The shipment last week, half of it was missing, and now we have proof. They've been making secret deals with your enemies. Taehyung's jaw clenched. He tapped his ringed finger against the leather seat rhythmically, a sign of his brewing rage. The Lees, he muttered, his deep voice vibrating with venom. Jungkook nodded, swiping the screen to show documents and surveillance photos. They think aligning with the Russians will protect them, but boss, it's a double play. They're taking your money while betraying your name. Taehyung chuckled darkly, the kind of laugh that could freeze blood. Typical, greed makes fools out of men. The Lees always wanted to rise higher than their worth, but now. He leaned forward, his eyes glowing with a dangerous fire. Now they've signed their death warrant. The driver spoke carefully, his hands gripping the wheel tighter. Do we crush them immediately, boss? Taehyung tilted his head, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips. Not yet. Let them breathe a little longer. The sweetest kill is when the prey thinks it's safe. Jungkook smirked, nodding. As expected from you, boss, you always let the enemies dig their own graves. Taehyung's gaze turned back to the city lights, his expression cold as steel. The Lees will learn what it means to betray KIMTAEHYUNG. They won't just lose their empire. His smirk deepened, dangerous and merciless. They'll beg for death before I'm done with them. The car continued its smooth glide through the city, carrying a king plotting destruction, the kind no one could escape. In's feet were sore, her breath heavy from running. For the first time in years, she was outside the walls of the Lee mansion, but the world felt terrifying. The streets were unfamiliar, the lights blinding, and her heart wouldn't stop racing. She reached a busy road, headlights rushing past like angry spirits. YN froze. How do I cross? Since the age of 12, she had been caged in the mansion. She hadn't been allowed to step outside its gates for almost 9 years. The traffic roared before her, honks echoing, her chest tightening with fear. She clutched her small bag, trembling, and when she finally stepped forward, honk, blinding headlights swerved toward her. In gasped, stumbling backward, her knees buckling, the car screeched to a stop. Her vision blurred, her body trembling violently, and then darkness claimed her as she fainted on the asphalt. The back door of the black Rolls-Royce opened. Jung-hoon rushed out, cursing under his breath, "Boss!" A girl just. He froze as the streetlight illuminated her pale face. His eyes widened. "Wait, I know her." Taehyung stepped out leisurely, his presence commanding even in the chaos. His tall frame and piercing eyes drew the attention of passers-by, who immediately looked away in fear. "Who is she?" Taehyung's voice was low, edged with curiosity. Jung-hoon crouched, carefully turning YN's face toward the light. Recognition hit him instantly. This is Lee Min-soo's daughter. Lee YN. At that name, Taehyung's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smirk. Lee Min-soo's daughter. His tone dripped with dark amusement. So the Lees still keep their precious blood hidden away. Jung-hoon looked up cautiously. "Boss, should we take her to a hospital?" Taehyung's eyes gleamed as he studied YN's unconscious face. "No, she's worth more than that. The Lees betrayed me, and now." He chuckled darkly, slipping his hands into his pockets. Now their daughter will be the perfect tool for revenge. He turned sharply. "Get her in the car. From this moment on, she's under us." Jung-hoon hesitated only for a second before nodding. "Yes, boss." The guards lifted YN's limp body gently into the car. Her head rested against the leather seat, her fingers still clutching the small bag with her mother's chain and ring inside. Taehyung slid back into his seat, his smirk not fading. "The Lees thought they could cheat me. Let's see how they react when their little secret is in my hands." The car door shut. The engine roared to life, and just like that, Lee YN's fate had shifted from being a prisoner of the Lees to a captive of Kim Taehyung. Previous one had poor response, so I changed. Now this one, don't Anki this one flop please.